Hey everybody, Sharon here from VidGamiac.com. Here we are today back in Roboquest going for the Ultimate Guardian achievement. This is going to be the big one. It is to beat the game on Guardian 4 difficulty, averaging an S rank. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you get into the game. So first thing is first, you're going to first need to unlock the difficulty. To do so, you're going to need to beat the game on hard, which is going to unlock Guardian 1. After that, beating it on Guardian 1 is going to unlock Guardian 2. Beating it on Guardian 2 is going to unlock Guardian 3. And then finally, beating Guardian 3 is going to unlock Guardian 4. Now, all of these playthroughs from hard to Guardian 3 do not have to be done with an S rank. You just need to beat them with any single rating in order to unlock the subsequent difficulty. Each subsequent difficulty is going to increase enemy health, damage, and aggressiveness, and Guardian 4 is also going to increase the number of elites regardless of your power crystal status. So make sure you do keep those in mind. Guardian 4 is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we are going to have a nice little trick in order to get through it. Easy peasy. Now, it is going to be recommended that you hold off on attempting the Guardian 4 run until you have the most advantage that you can get. Bare minimum, you are going to definitely need to find every single one of the power crystals. This is going to make the last stage way easier. As a trade-off, it's going to put more elites in the regular levels, but since Guardian 4 is going to do that anyways, might as well get this free advantage. So make sure you have all 6 power crystals, and make sure you have all of them activated. You are pretty much going to want to have all of the workshop upgrades available to you. There's going to be a few that you can leave out, but for the most part, you should have it complete, and that is going to include all of the upgrades that you get through the power crystals off on the side right here. So make sure you do take advantage of all of these, as every single one is going to be a big help with the run. When it comes to the gadgets, the only ones that I'm going to call a necessity are going to be the jetpack and the grappling hook. Everything else may be helpful, however, those two are going to be the only ones that I'm going to personally recommend. As for the sunglasses, that is going to be up to you. It's going to be a high risk reward thing, trading in your health for extra damage. Personally, I'm going to recommend turning it off because having all of the extra health that you can get is going to be more useful than having the extra damage. For your character class, Ranger is definitely going to be the way to go for this, as the Stealth and Javelin is going to be a big help with getting us through the opening area, so make sure you select them. But of course, if you are super good with another class, do feel free to explore that option as well. Then without further ado, we're going to start up the run. We're going to get into the game. First thing you want to do is want to make sure you check the starting chest. You are going to definitely want to pick a gun that you're going to be best with. Personally, I am more of a machine gun user, but of course it's going to be up to your playstyle. So make sure you grab your weapon. If you don't get a weapon that suits your playstyle, feel free to just restart the run and then keep opening up the chest until you do get one that does suit your playstyle. Then we're going to take advantage of that workshop upgrade that gives us a perk right off the bat. I'm going to recommend your first perk always be reduced stealth cooldown, as we're going to need that for this first stage. Then make sure you switch over to your secondary and make sure you switch that over for Buddybot. Buddybot is going to play a very important role in the trick we're going to pull off later on. We are going to need to play into the game quite a bit before we can take advantage of the trick, which is going to mean we're going to have a pretty hard time getting through the first level. This is going to be especially true if we're trying to S rank it on Guardian 4 difficulty. Now, onto the explanation on how the S rank is going to work. In the upper right corner of the screen is going to be your minimap, and then directly beneath that is going to be 2 bars. First bar is going to be your XP bar. This one is going to fill as you defeat enemies. In order to get an S rank, you're pretty much going to have to be as thorough as you can and defeat every single enemy in the level. The second one is going to be the timer. It's going to start at S rank and is going to deplete over time, which is pretty much going to mean in order to get an S rank, you're going to need to clear the level before that first bar can deplete. So in other words, we're going to need to be absolutely perfect and then try to be both thorough and fast when trying to get through this level. Once you're ready, hop through that door, and then it's time for some basic tips. I'm going to recommend starting out by placing Buddybot, and then you're going to want to use your stealth. Make sure you try to get to the back and then flank the enemies. Start out always by taking out the turret, then the shield generator guys, and then just slowly work on picking off the crowd. Then we're going to speed to the next engagement. Watch out for the elites. Always make sure you start the engagement by popping Buddybot out in front, and then just make sure you stay back. Do take advantage of your javelins, as those are going to be the major damage dealers, but you you definitely want to focus on taking out the turrets first and foremost, then the shield guys, and then the rest of the enemies. Make sure once you get to the fork in the road, you head on over to the corrupted bonus zone. We're actually not going to step inside, we're just going to take advantage of the enemies out in front. Again, make sure you start out with the turret, then the shield guys, and then make sure you work on cleaning up the rest of the group. Quickly make it back to the other side of the fork. You always want to make sure you prioritize these guys, the big XP pinatas on the rails. Then make sure you put up your stealth, get to the back, take out the turrets, and then keep working on our strategy. Turret guys first, then shield generators, then everyone else. Be as quick as possible. Get to the safe room. Timer should be paused. You can take this time to level up. Make sure you try to choose things that improve either your stealth or your javelin or both, and then once you have that squared away, we're going to grab our next loadout. So for these, again, make sure you try to pick things that improve your javelin or your stealth. If not, make sure you choose things that are improving your critical damage or your general weapon damage. If you don't get anything among those lines, just make sure you grab power cells because we can put those into the stores. For the stores, same thing. Make sure you prioritize javelin, stealth, critical hit, or weapon damage. And then for the weapon upgrade, make sure you always try to put that into Buddybot. We're going to go down the Oasis path for this. Again, for this second combat zone in canyons, we're going to need to play absolutely perfect as the timer is going to be on our back. So make sure you apply that same strategy, get into the stage, pop Buddybot down, make sure you stay behind him, and then you're going to need to try to flank the opposition to take out the turret, and then work on the shield guys, and then the rest of the group. If you happen to have an elite try to rush you, make sure you're quick in dispatching them. Again, your javelins are going to be very helpful here. Hopefully your level layout is going to be more conducive to speed running, but just make sure you keep pushing forward. Watch out for the explosive guys. You definitely want to make sure you stand behind Buddybot so he takes the brunt of the offense. And then once you get your stealth back, make sure you use it to flank and then take out the turrets and then thin out the group. Basically, you're always trying to sandwich the opposition between Buddybot and yourself by using the stealth to get to the back. So just make sure you do the same thing. Always be mindful of the cooldown of your stealth. Hopefully you can upgrade that along the way, as well as getting that thing back as soon as possible is always going to be useful. Make sure you try to get those pinata guys. Hopefully they appear at the front of the group instead of the back, because trying to get around everyone while trying to take out the pinata guy before he can disappear is going to be very important. So make sure you try to prioritize him, because not only is he going to be a big source of XP, he's also going to drop a ton of health orbs, which is going to be super useful when picking yourself up. While you're working on this second to last group of the level, you definitely want to make sure you keep an eye out on the timer. Once you notice that thing get below 15%, you're going to need to start making a push towards the last door. So make sure you get to the door, and then you are going to basically want to turn around, take out all of the enemies in this last group right here. Then make sure you quickly move backwards in the level and try to get as many enemies as you can. Once you notice that XP bar tick over to S rank, just make sure you book it straight for the door and not worry about any of the remaining enemies. Hopefully you are able to cross over quick enough, and if you happen to S rank both of the bars, you should get the S rank for the level, and that should take care of the hardest bit of the run. So now that we are in Oasis, we can breathe a deep sigh of relief because we can finally take advantage of the trick. The trick, of course, is going to revolve around Buddybot, so make sure you switch on over to him. You're going to want to go behind the right waterfall. This is going to take you to Buddybot's upgrade room. Make sure you give him over to the NPC, and he's going to upgrade Buddybot to the fantastic version. Now, in the current build of the game, which is going to be 1.0.0, there's going to be a cool glitch that you can take advantage of. So make sure you grab your health, and then make sure you open up the starting chest. If there's nothing to your liking, just make sure you grab the power cells. Now, very important, you need to make sure you take the fantastic Buddybot over to Chef, and you want to make sure you upgrade him as far as you can go. Then which one do you want to make sure you check out the item shop? You're going to want to invest in anything that boosts weapon damage, energy weapon damage, and critical hits. So make sure you dump all of your power cells into any and all things that apply to those categories. Now, bare minimum, you are going to have to get any upgrade on a Buddybot first, whether that be a level up through Chef or one of the items that buffs one of those categories. The reason for that is the way the glitch is going to work is once you upgrade Buddybot to the fantastic Buddybot, you should be able to place 2 down using left trigger. Now, every time you place a Buddybot down, Buddybot is going to get whatever buffs are going to be normally applied to it. Now, where the glitch is going to come in is every time you place a Buddybot down, it's actually going to keep whatever buffs that are going to be applied to it. Now, because of this, what you can do is you could actually stack whatever buffs that are going to be applied to it infinitely. So every time you place a Buddybot, it's going to get another copy of whatever buffs are on it, and you can keep doing this in these safe areas where the timer isn't going to budge and where there are no enemies. So what you can do is you can keep mashing left trigger to place a Buddybot down. Every time you place one down, it's going to incrementally increase the amount of damage it's going to output. You aren't going to be able to see this in their stats, but you should be able to see it in practice when you deploy a Buddybot out into combat. Now, the damage increase is going to be pretty incremental, but thankfully there's not going to be a limit to how often you can do it. So just make sure you stay here in the safe zone while the timer is paused and while there are no enemies, and just keep mashing that left trigger. And then after enough time, you can basically get Buddybot as strong as you need it to, even up to the point where it can one-shot every single enemy in the game. I am going to recommend that you have a turbo controller handy if you don't want to sit here and mash left trigger for an exorbitant amount of time. So just make sure you plug that turbo controller in, make sure you turbo the left trigger button, and then just walk away, and then come back to a super strong set of Buddybots. That being said, we definitely do not want to abuse this glitch right now. The reason for that is we are going to need to consider the fact that we may draw Billy Boom as our boss at the end of Chapter 2. So if you over level up the Buddybots, what's going to happen is they're going to one-shot Billy Boom, which is going to bypass the little quick time event you have to do where you need to pull the trigger on his back to disarm him. If you one-shot Billy Boom, he's basically going to detonate, and that's going to end the run prematurely. So to avoid the catastrophe of us needing to restart the entire run, we're just going to do the exploit for about 15 to 20 minutes or so. That should be just enough to get Buddybot to hit in the high 200s per shot, which should be enough to one-shot any normal enemy. However, it's not going to be enough to one-shot a boss. So with the exploit explained and done and the warning issued, we're going to actually start our run. So make sure you open up the door. I'm going to recommend that you try to place the Buddybots through the door. This is going to be a nice little trick in order to get them out on the field while we are still behind complete safety. Then once they have cleared out a majority of the enemies, make sure you poke your head through and make sure you just mop up the rest. Again, you want to make sure you try to apply the same fundamentals of prioritizing the XP pinatas first, then the turrets, and then the shield guys. But Buddybot should make complete work of everyone. So it's going to be pretty much a matter of just deploying Buddybot out and then just making sure that you hide behind a corner and then peeking your head out to just cover him. You're definitely going to want to try to take care of any of the shield generating enemies. The reason for that is Buddybot's AI isn't going to be so great as it's going to be programmed to attack whatever is the closest thing to it. So you're definitely going to need to mop up any of the shield generators because Buddybot isn't going to be able to pierce through the shields. Buddybot should also take a significant amount of fire away from you, so you can always use your stealth to flank past the enemies and then take out the things that are going to be more priority to you instead of Buddybot, so the XP pinatas and the shield guys, and just let Buddybot whittle down everyone else. Even if you do deploy them on their own, they actually do a pretty good job of holding out for themselves and just destroying everything. Now, because we are able to pretty much one-shot every single one of the enemies, the timer isn't going to be too big of a worry. We are still going to have to be pretty thorough and try to take out all of the enemies. However, hitting those XP pinatas aren't going to be a necessity anymore, since there's more than enough enemies in these later levels to fill up the XP bar, as long as you are taking out all of them. So for this first open combat zone in Oasis, make sure you try to clean up all of the alternate paths. So make sure you try to fill in the map the best you can. Once you get to the exit door, make sure you don't step through it quite just yet. Make sure you get all of the enemies in front of the purple bonus corrupted zone as well as the orange secret zone. You don't have to go into any of them. In fact, I am going to advise against that because they are going to be a waste of time, as you are still going to have the timer ticking down if you do decide to participate in those. If you are trying to play this a little more trepidatiously, I am going to recommend you just jetpack up to the higher part of the level and just dive bot buddy bombs down and then let them take care of all the enemies from up high. You are still going to have to worry about the flying enemies if you do this, so make sure you are a little careful and just watch your back whenever you do fly up high. But this is going to be the safest way of taking out all of the enemies from a super high vantage point. So thankfully, this trick is going to take pretty much all of the challenge out of the higher difficulties, and of course, you're not just limited to doing this on the higher difficulties. This will work for any playthrough. So make sure you do take advantage of this in case you are still working on your hard or Guardians 1, 2, or 3 playthroughs. When it comes to getting the S rankings, they should be pretty much unmissable unless you are just skipping massive swaths of enemies or are just taking way too long getting lost or something. So just make sure you keep an eye out on those 2 meters. But again, they should be pretty much unmissable as long as you are being thorough. And because you are destroying things so quickly, you should have more than enough time to spare in order to get that S ranking for the timer. So just make sure that you fill in the map all of the way. Make sure you destroy every single enemy. You do not need to go into any of the bonus nor secret areas. So just make sure you stick to the straight up combat and make sure you just clean up shop. So as long as you stay up high, you should be pretty much untouchable. The only reason to go back down is if you need to pick your health up. When it comes to level ups, whenever you get a level up, you want to make sure you try to put it into either stealth or critical damage, depending on what you roll. Stealth is going to be a big help later, as we are still going to need to take advantage of your cloaking abilities, especially for the last level. And then critical damage is just going to help buff up Buddybot even more later on. So just make sure you prioritize those 2 things when it comes to your actual level ups, and then you should be good. Once the map is cleared of all of the red dots, make sure you try to navigate towards that exit and make sure you get there. Even though you have a ton of time, you still have a timer pressing down on you. So make sure you do keep that in mind and make sure you don't get too distracted. So on to the mid-level safe room. Thankfully, the timer is going to pause here so you can get your loadout. Make sure you heal. Very important because you still are probably taking damage. When it comes to the chest, I'm always going to recommend you try to go for power cells. Make sure you avoid the weapon shop. It's going to be a waste of cells. And always make sure you go over to Chef and then upgrade Buddybot. And if you happen to get the item shop, make sure you keep an eye out for things that increase critical damage, weapon damage, or energy weapon damage. Once you are ready, make sure you pop open that door. Again, I'm going to recommend that you try to place Buddybots through the door so you can clear out an opening. Once you have enough space, just make sure you advance and then just make sure you push up, staying behind Buddybot most of the time. Then once you get to the next door, this is going to be the first Horde mode zone of the run. Open the door, but make sure you don't step through. For these Horde mode rooms, for the most part, you can just stand behind the door and just keep placing Buddybots through it, and they should pretty much take care of the entire Horde. The only bad situation is if you happen to get a ton of shield enemies who are going to be in hard-to-reach spots. In those situations, you are going to have to step through the door and take care of them before Buddybot can take them out. The other thing that you may have to worry about are the elite enemies who can teleport. Those enemies can actually pass through the door. You want to be very careful with those because what can happen is if they warp behind the door and then you step through the door is going to lock behind you and they aren't able to teleport back into the combat zone. Unfortunately, if that happens, the run is going to end up getting stuck and you are going to have to restart because you aren't able to take out the last enemy. That being said, if for whatever reason you need to step out into combat, make sure you try to put up your cloak right away. Make sure you try to get behind enemy lines and then take out anything that the Buddybots are going to struggle with, namely the shield guys. And then just make sure you work on taking out the enemies by flanking them. And then hopefully your Buddybots can cool down quick enough so you can pop up more so they can watch your back. But once you take care of the Horde mode zone, we're going to have one more combat zone before the boss room. Again, just make sure you pop up your Buddybots from behind the door. And then once they clean up the area, make sure you advance. And then once you're in this room, make sure you get your health back. Make sure you buy any upgrades that are actually going to help you. And then make sure you get ready for the boss fight. So hopefully you did heed that warning earlier about Billy Boom, or hopefully you have some good luck and draw Dr. Turret or Diggy Mole instead. Whatever the case, just make sure you pop down your Buddybots and they should make quick work of the boss. Or in the case of Billy Boom, you want to make sure they don't make too quick work of the boss. But nonetheless, you should be able to defeat whatever's here expediently. Now with the first boss out of the way, we should continue our streak of S ranks. There's going to be our second one, and thankfully the game should get way easier from this point. So we should roll into fields for our level 3. Make sure you grab your starting loadout. So make sure you grab your health. Make sure you grab the power cells out of the chest. Make sure you check the shops. Again, avoid the weapon shop. Make sure you take a gander at the item shop and pick up anything that buffs those categories we're looking for. Avoid the Heisenbot shop since the trade-offs aren't going to be worth it. And make sure you hit up Chef to upgrade Buddybot if necessary. Now that the possibility of rolling Billy Boom is going to be out of the way, we can fully take advantage of the trick here, which I do recommend doing, as you can get your Buddybots to hit for a ton of damage. So make sure you head off to a corner or somewhere while still in this starting safe room, and then we're going to plug in our turbo controller. We should have our stat buffs in order, so we're going to turbo left trigger again, or if we don't have a turbo controller, we're just going to mash left trigger for however long. Personally, I'm going to recommend that you let this run for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. There's nothing stopping you from letting it run longer, but at that point, you should be hitting for about 1500 to 2000. Nonetheless, once you finally get all of those left trigger presses in and get back to the game, we're going to continue the run. Make sure you open up that door and make sure you place those Buddybots through. And as you can see, all of that hard work of standing still and pressing the same button for about 2 hours is going to pay off. As you can see, they're going to hit for a ton of damage and just shred through all of the enemies. So we're just going to keep up on our same strategy. Make sure you try to stand behind a door whenever you have one available to you to block the hits. For fields, you definitely want to make sure you try to watch out for the landmine enemies. Make sure you don't let them sneak up on you. Definitely keep an eye out on your mini-map for the red dots. Now, unfortunately, Fields isn't going to be a really open level, so you can't really jetpack over everything and just sky bomb your Buddybots in as you normally would. However, the level does have a ton of vantage points, so just make sure you stay up high, make sure you drop Buddybots in, and make sure you just take a step back so the corner of the vantage points can protect you. Again, make sure you try to play through the level as thoroughly as possible. So make sure you try to take out all of the enemies, especially the ones in front of the bonus corrupted zone. Just make sure you jetpack over, try to find a vantage point, and make sure you start sky bombing those Buddybots in, and then you should be able to take out the entirety of the group super duper quickly, and then just move back to the main path. Watch out at the end, right before the safe room, we are going to have one of the big flying enemies, so make sure you be a little careful for those guys, as they will wreck shop if you do get caught in their line of sight, and even on the vantage point, they still can reach you, so make sure you are a little careful, and make sure you are poking your head out when it's safe to do so. Drop down, make sure you clean up the rest of the landmine dudes, and then make sure you proceed into the safe room once you are safe to do so. So make sure you get on inside. Remember to practice the good habits of your upgrades. Remember to heal first. Open up the starting chest to grab any power cells. Make sure you avoid the weapon shop. Check out the item shop. Only buy things that are going to buff up those stats we are going to need. And always dump all of your power cells into Chef to upgrade Buddybot. Then once you are done, make sure you hit up the next door. Of course, we are going to try to stick to the shortest path as possible in order to get through the game. Then we're going to continue our strategy of popping the Buddybots through the door. Watch out for the elites who can teleport behind the door. Make sure you take those guys out as swiftly as possible. And always remember, you definitely do not want to lock them in these safe rooms, as that's going to cause major issues, especially if you are dealing with a horde mode room that requires you to clear out every single enemy. So that should be a pretty good demonstration on how the glitch is going to work and how you can take advantage of it and how you're going to apply it to your actual run. Make sure you get through the next combat zone, and then you're going to have a horde mode room. Then we're going to have the final room of the level, which is going to be this big open combat area. So make sure you step out onto the field. We're going to have one more of those big dropship guys we're going to need to deal with. That being said, if you do happen to hit the S rank on the XP bar sooner rather than later, I'm going to recommend you just rush straight for the exit instead of just wasting time. There's no point wasting time in killing enemies once we have the S rank secured anyways, so just make sure you get to that exit, get your S rank, and then move on to the next level, which in this situation is going to be Energy Center. So grab your starting loadout, remember the rules, health first, grab the power cells out of the starting chest, make sure you avoid the weapon shop, grab anything useful to you in the item shop, make sure you avoid Heisenbot, and make sure you dump all of the chef upgrades into upgrading Buddybot. On to the actual level, Energy Center is going to be a bit of a slog with a ton of combat, but there's nothing our good old bag of tricks can't take care of. So remember to take advantage of your overpowered Buddybots. Make sure you use the door trick whenever you have a door available to you. Thin out the crowd, and then once you take out the front line, get into the level. First area is going to be a combat zone where we can take advantage of jetpacking and just dive bombing Buddybots down. So make sure you do so, and you should be able to take care of this. Remember to be thorough and take out the enemies in front of the bonus corrupted zone, and you should take care of this first zone a-okay. Next room up is going to be a horde mode room, so again, take advantage of the door trick the best you can. This one can be a little tough as you are on higher ground, and there is going to be a barricade in front of you. There's also going to be a ton of shield enemies in this room, so you're going to have to kind of finagle the positioning with Buddybot the best you can. Remember, when you are at an absolute stalemate, that's going to be when you want to cross the door. Make sure once you cross the door, though, you do have your stealth ready to go, and you do have Buddybots at the ready. So keep an eye out on your Buddybot cooldown, because whenever you are in a sticky situation, you want to make sure you place Buddybot down so they can watch your back. So once you are ready to make that crossing, when there are only shield guys left, make sure you do so and try to get behind enemy lines, and make sure you try to get your Buddybot defenses up. If anything, you can also take advantage of the cover here, but just make sure you keep watching both directions, and then once it's safe to do so, take advantage of that stealth to get to a safer vantage point, and then continue to rain Buddybots down. Always keep an eye out on that cooldown, and you should be able to manage the timing and then get to the next room. Another combat zone right here. This one's going to be a little shorter, thankfully, but just make sure you just take advantage of the corner, and then you should be able to thin out the group. So once you take care of this screen, you should be on to the next safe room. Again, make sure you upgrade your loadout right here. Health first, then starting chest to get power cells, or if you happen to pull a useful item, you can take advantage of that as well. Skip the weapon shop, make sure you hit up the item shop and grab anything of use to you, and then make sure you always dump your power cells into upgrading Buddybot over at Chef. So this is going to be the point of the game where you're going to get a randomly generated bit for the second half in terms of what elemental you have to deal with. This shouldn't really matter to you since Buddybot is going to be non-elemental unless you happen to upgrade him with an element. In that case, it's going to be kind of risk reward, but you're doing so much damage anyways, it's not really going to matter. So just make sure you just keep up on the same fundamentals. Just make sure you just use the door trick whenever possible, and whenever you are out in the open, just make sure you jetpack and dive bomb Buddybots down, and then you should be able to get through another combat zone easy peasy. Once you wrap this one up, you're going to be taken to another horde mode room, which is going to be the exact same thing as last time. So make sure you door trick as long as you can. Once you reach a stalemate where they're going to be only shield guys where the Buddybots are going to do damage to, make sure you rush on in. Make sure you do take advantage of your stealth. It's going to be super useful at this point if you happen to have your stealth upgrade to the point where it does leave a drone behind. That way it can do extra damage while you are trying to move in and out of safety. Once you survive the horde, it's time to push on to the final combat area right before the boss room, so make sure you take advantage of this. Again, it's going to be another easy one where you can take advantage of corners and you can take advantage of jetpacking. Remember to keep an eye out on your 2 meters. Once you S rank that XP bar, just push it straight to the finish. There's no point in sticking around and wasting time. Make sure you do your boss prep, and then it's in to the boss room to take care of boss fight number 2. It is going to be in these later boss fights where you are definitely going to see the advantage of having an overpowered Buddybot. As you can see, they're just going to shred the boss apart regardless of whatever boss it is going to be. And after defeating the boss in only a matter of seconds, we should advance to the next level with S rank number 4 in the bag. So we're going to move on to Haven City. This one's going to be another pretty slog of a level. So grab your starting loadout and make sure you are ready for this one. The timer is going to be very generous on this map, so make sure you do keep that in mind. I am going to recommend you try your best not to get too lost though. Basically, the entirety of the level is going to be one big sprawling city area. It's going to contain 4 mini bosses that you need to defeat each of, and what's going to happen is that's going to open up the final door. Now, that being said, you are still going to have to be pretty thorough in defeating most of the enemies in order to get that S rank on the XP bar, but the time, again, is going to be very generous to work with, so make sure you keep that in mind. You definitely want to be very careful of the security camera type of enemies, though, as they can sneak up on you, as they're going to be very hard to see, and you definitely want to make sure you don't let them sneak up on you, as the extra damage they do on this difficulty can shred your health bar if you aren't paying super close attention. That being said, the name of the game is going to be very similar to most of the open levels in this game. Make sure you fly up high, and then make sure you just dive bomb Buddybots down. There's going to be a ton of flying enemies that are going to chase you, so I'm going to recommend you try to keep a Buddybot in the reserve so you can have a little bit of defense on here. But just make sure you just fly into the big pockets of enemies, drop Buddybots down, and then just make sure you have them take everyone out. The mini bosses are going to be designated on both your mini map and your map by the big red dots, so they're going to be pretty hard to miss. And of course, they're always going to be surrounded by their entourage of regular enemies. So just make sure you focus on these areas first, and then if you're still needing XP towards that S rank, make sure you fly around and look for the big pockets of enemies. Now, do keep in mind there are going to be a ton of secret areas on this map. These secret areas aren't going to be defended by a ton of enemies, so I'm going to recommend you try to avoid the edges of the map and just stick to the middle. You definitely want to make sure you try to pay attention for the plazas, because that's going to be the highest density of enemies. So just make sure you keep that in mind and make sure you stay up high. Only come down if you are absolutely in need of health. And then just make sure you stick to the high ground and just make sure you keep dive bombing your Buddybots in, and you should be able to take out the 4 main quadrants and then clean up any plazas after the fact. So after taking out all 4 of the mini bosses, you want to make sure you shoot for about a high B or an A. That way you should be able to clean up the rest just flying around and just dropping buddy bots at random while trying to go for the exit. There is going to be a group of enemies right next to the exit, so you should be able to use that to wrap up the S rank. But again, the timer is going to be way generous on this one, so make sure you don't feel like you're totally rushed, but you definitely want to make sure you try not to get lost or too distracted. And again, I am going to recommend that you avoid the secret areas in it of their entirety. So make sure you avoid the cinema, the stadium, the art museum, or the bot cave. So once you are at that A rank, just make sure you make one last push for the exit. There should be enough enemies here to get you over to that S rank, but make sure you get that S rank before you step through that last door though. Once you have the S rank secured, it's time to move on to the next level. This one's going to be District 13, the penultimate level. So make sure you grab your starting loadout as you normally would, then we're going to get into things. So first things first, opening part of the level, door trick for the win. Make sure you take out that first lot of enemies, and then once you actually step foot out, the way that District 13 is going to work is there's going to be 2 bonus corrupted zones that we are going to have to do in order to open up the final door. There's one on each side of the level, left and right. You're going to need to do both of them. There's going to be a ton of enemies outside of each door. Very simple. Make sure you take out every single one of them. There's going to be a ton of enemies in the middle, and there's going to be a ton of enemies by the exit. So, long story short, if you happen to take out all 4 big pockets of enemies, you should be more than good for getting the S rank for XP. That being said, you definitely want to make sure you try to do this in order to make that time limit, though. So, pick a side, do that corrupted bonus zone by clearing out the enemies in front and just doing the zone as you would. Having the jetpack is going to make these zones super easy, regardless on how challenging that they would be normally, as you can just fly over all of the obstacles. And then make sure you get to that chest, make sure you open it up. Always grab the power cells and then make sure you push on to the other side of the level. You can also take out the enemies in the middle as you are flying past. So just make sure you do that, and then once they're taken care of, take out the enemies in front of the other corrupted bonus zone. Make sure you clear that corrupted bonus zone. Again, using the jetpack makes things a cinch. And then just make sure you get to the front of the exit, and then make sure you clear that out. And that should be more than good for an S rank. There is also going to be a boss fight at the end of this level, so make sure you do keep that in mind, and make sure you aren't taking your sweet time in it of its entirety. So just make sure you take care of this, and then it's going to be off to the exit now that the first 3 sections of the level are all cleared. So last big salvo of enemies right here. Just make sure you take them out. Again, stay up high, drop buddy bots in from up here, and then you should be able to take care of everything without getting so much as a scratch. So once everything outside is going to be all taken care of course, we are going to have a boss fight that we need to worry about. So make sure you get through that door, make sure you do your boss prep, and then make sure you get to the boss fight. Just like the previous one, this one's going to be super duper easy, as we can just drop a few buddy bots in, and they'll just shred the boss in only a matter of seconds. So make sure you do that, and of course this is going to be regardless of whatever boss it is going to be. So no matter what you draw, your buddy bots are going to take care of them easy peasy. So just make sure you do that, and then once you take care of this boss, it's going to be on to the final level, which is going to be Moon. So just one more S rank shy of completing the game with that S rank average. So here we are on Moon. Again, make sure you grab your starting loadout as you normally would. This is also going to be the screen where you verify your power crystals. So you want to make sure you have all 6 checked, as having all 6 power crystals is going to crank down the challenge of Moon, as it's going to turn off all of the obstacles that would normally make this level super duper hard. So make sure you proceed forward. We're going to have the first combat zone right here. This one's super easy. Just make sure you use the door trick the entire time. The only thing you need to worry about are going to be those elites who can teleport behind the door, but you should be more than prepared for that. Make sure you don't step through the door if that happens, and you should be good for not locking yourself out of completing the rest of the game. And your buddy bots should have a clear shot at everything. Just make sure you are playing the patience game, and make sure you are super careful for those elites. But as you can see right here, there are going to be no shielded enemies in the first room of Moon, thankfully. So just make sure you do that. Use your jetpack to place buddy bots up high, and that way they can take care of the dropship guys. And you just need to be patient. There's only going to be 2 combat areas and then 2 boss fights in the last stage, so you have way more than enough time to work with. For this first combat zone, as you can see, you can pretty much do the entirety of it from behind the safety of the door. So just make sure you stay behind here and just keep peppering the enemies using your buddy bots. This is also going to give you more than enough opportunities to keep an eye out for any elites who dash behind. Once you take out the last enemy, you're going to move forward. Make sure you get into the next room. As you can see, thankfully the hazards are going to be turned off if you have all the power crystals. You're also going to be given a healing bot right here, so make sure you take advantage of that. But nonetheless, just make sure you skip past all this, get to the next combat zone, which is going to be through this door. This one's going to be a little more challenging. Again, you can try to take advantage of the door trick super early, but you definitely want to make sure you keep an eye out for those teleporting elites. But the challenge with the second room in Moon is going to be the shield generator. Now, depending on where it spawns, you may or may not have a hard time of this. I'm going to recommend you try to get a fix on its location before you make that jump in. Make sure you do so, quickly put your stealth up, and make sure you rush over to it. Make sure you just spam your javelin shots at it and try to blow it up as quickly as possible. Once you take out the shield generator, it's time to try to get to safety. Make sure you are dropping buddy bots down for cover, but your goal is to try to jetpack or grappling hook up to that ledge right there. Once you are up there, you should be pretty much in the clear, as you can just drop buddy bots down and then just wrap up the room from this safe vantage point. So make sure you try to do that. Again, it's going to be a little hard since you can barely make it there with a full jetpack charge, so definitely take advantage of both the jetpack and the grappling hook. That being said, once you do finally get up here, you should be pretty much safe from any and all danger, and you can just continue to rain buddy bots down and just have them wreck shop while you just stay up here and be super duper safe. And that's pretty much going to do it for the second room in Moon. Your only real obstacle is if an elite happens to teleport behind that opening door, which of course is going to give you trouble if you have that door locked too early. So make sure you are mindful for that, because that will completely trash your run. But nonetheless, once you take out all of the enemies, it's time to push forward. You're going to drop down into the room just before the final boss fight. So make sure you grab your last loadout right here. Make sure you heal up, and then grab anything that may still be useful to you. Once you are ready, make sure you head through those final doors, and then it's on to the final boss. There's going to be 2 phases to this boss fight. You're going to start out with this phase. Again, pretty easy thanks to our overpowered buddy bots. Just make sure you place them down, and they should shred the health bar of the last boss down in only a few seconds or so. So just make sure you stay back, watch the fireworks. Try not to get too reckless, because this thing still does hit really hard. But nonetheless, once you are able to finally take this thing out, it's going to be on to the second phase, which again is going to be super duper easy, and thankfully it's going to take place in a more open area, so you have more space to work with. So make sure you pop those buddy bots down once you get into things, and make sure you just watch the health bar get shredded while you stand back and then provide some cover fire. But nonetheless, just make sure you just get through these 2 forms, and that should be the run. As you can see, we have plenty of time left on the clock to deal with, since there was only 2 combat areas. So one last shot for the win, and that should take care of the final boss. That should take us to the results screen, and we should be good for our final S rank. Given that we have S ranked the other levels, that should average out the entire game as an S rank. And then once we get our S rank for Guardian 4, that should be good enough for the achievement. It should unlock here, or as you are loading back into the base camp or restarting for another run, but you should be good for the 2 big achievements, including Hardened Guardian for beating the game on Guardian 4 difficulty. That one is going to be for 20 gamer score. But of course, we are really here for the big prize. There it is, Ultimate Guardian for beating the game on Guardian 4 difficulty with an S rank. 30 gamer score for this one, and that's all there is to it.